Hello and welcome. This is Sherry with Heart and Soulful in the studio today with a fun share. I have a new digital kit that I did not know was going to be happening right now. But it did, and so I'm so super excited to share it with you because it's just been a lot of fun learning new things, and that's why I started this channel. I wanted to learn new things and then share them with my followers. So if you have been following along, you know I haven't posted a video in a little bit, and it's because I've been working on this and still traveling back and forth. If you have been following me, and you know I purchased, my husband and I purchased a home back in the town we moved from a few years ago. And so for this last year, it's back and forth, back and forth. And it's kind of caused me to do a little bit of different things. Just because of the going back and forth and not being in one place, you know, for more than maybe a week or two at a time. So one thing that I have found myself doing is when I go back and visit, I have been visiting all of the vintage shops and antique stores and things that I always loved to visit before. And since everything's been shut down for COVID for a few years, it's been nice. Everything's opened up again, and it's really gotten me back into that kind of exploring thing. And I love doing that. It had been a while. I had stopped doing kind of some of the things I used to do. And so I didn't need all the things I used to collect, or I had stopped collecting them. And then when I found the whole paper craft and book arts and all that, I kind of thought I can still maybe, you know, enjoy collecting those things and use them for this. And so that's kind of what I've been doing. The fun thing about this collection is that I have been, if you've been following along, you know that my whole kind of exploration into the whole world of digital downloads is all new to me. And so over the time that I've been doing this paper craft and mixed media and all that kind of stuff, I've been learning things and kind of putting together some kits that I have in my Etsy shop that have been all background sort of things. So I've done, you know, Fresco Finishes with a jelly plate, and I've used some of these in this kit for the backgrounds. So if you haven't seen these yet, I'll put links down below in the description, and then that way you can check them out. But I've used them in actual journals, you know, for backgrounds of pages and that sort of thing. But I hadn't actually taken my digitals and then used them as backgrounds for my own new digitals, you know, and that sort of thing. So I wanted to kind of share with you which kits I used. I used some from the Fresco Finish, you'll see, and I'll point them out in the digitals, and then some from my Distressed Wallpaper Pack, and then some also from just my grunge backgrounds. These were all great texture and backgrounds to use, and then also from the vintage book pages. So I've used all of these kits, you know, bits and pieces, creating these collages. And so it was so much fun. I've been kind of learning Photoshop, and Adobe Illustrator is kind of where I started. And then I had joined the Graphics Fairy. If you're into digital arts, you know all this already, but there are sites that you can purchase different licenses to use different elements in your graphic design. And so I had joined the Graphics Fairy, and they have great videos and print tutorials on how to use Photoshop elements. And so I purchased that program just because it was easier than me trying to take those techniques and apply them using a different program. So you may work with different programs to do digital arts, but that's what I used and have been learning over the last few weeks to put these collages together. So it's been so much fun. I've enjoyed it. I really wanted to just start playing around with some collaging. And so it kind of evolved after I did a couple. I was having so much fun doing them. I can kind of see a consistency in my color palette and just kind of things that I was doing. So I decided to turn it into a kit. And then that way, as I was creating the digitals, I made sure that I had enough variety of things to actually do a full journal. So that's what I'm going to show you, my signatures that came together after I show you these actual pages. So as per usual on my Etsy shop, you'll see a thumbnail, and it's going to show you all of the designs. Because Etsy only allows you 10 photos, I wasn't allowed to put each one in a full sheet, in a full photo so that you could see. Sometimes for my other kits, I would put 2 different pages side by side, but because these are so intricate and detailed, I thought you weren't going to get to see each page in a little picture anyway. So I would rather you see the quality of the work that you're going to receive. But on this thumbnail, you'll see all 14 pages. So I did them in a form that they can be folded in half for folios. And I did some of them are more detailed because I just like things kind of busy and mixing patterns and that sort of thing. And then some of them I really did very simply, and you'll see them closer up that they are all collages. They're not just plain paper. But that way, if you wanted to print them on the back side, you would have a double-sided folio. So there are quite a few that are just simple, and then, some more finished ones. So I'll show each of them to you one by one in this video. And then the other thing that I did that was kind of an experiment for me, having done my other digital kits and the ones that have lots of pattern, like my Bohemian kits and that sort of thing, one thing that I found in actually even my purchasing other people's digital kits is if you're doing something that has really kind of pictures and portraits and things that are going to get scaled differently and then matter depending on what size paper you're printing on, I didn't want distortion. So I thought, what if the 2 common sizes that people are printing on are 8.5 by 11, which is US letter size, or A4, which the rest of the world seems to use. And actually, I have also purchased and printed on A4 paper here because you can buy it and printers print that way. So I'm not sure about in other countries, if the printers that you buy, I would think you would still be able to print on US letter size paper, but I don't know that for sure. So what I decided to do so that I didn't worry about distortion was when I created my designs, I created them so that they would fit on either size paper without having to really change the size. You can, in your print settings, you're going to tell it what size paper you're printing it on. And then you can decide if you want it to fill up the paper or just print to the size it was designed. And then you'll see that you won't get all that kind of funny mirror kind of look. So what I did then was I chose, instead of 8.5 for my height, I always kind of do them landscape. Instead of 8.5, I did it 8.3 because then that'll fit an A4 width, okay? Because US letter is 8.5, so it'll fit both sizes in the width. And then the other dimension is 11 for US paper, but it's a little bit longer than that for A4. So I did it the smallest 2 dimensions, if that makes any sense. So my designs were created 8.3 by 11. That way it'll fit on both sides of papers, and you'll have a little bit to trim. But I realized in printing borderless, most of my journal, when I'm folding them in half for folios, I'm going to have them be a little smaller than that anyway. So I really don't mind having that little bit of border around. I printed all of these just to show you on 8.5 by 11, even though I designed them in 8.3 by 11, so that you can kind of see what I'm talking about. So this, again, is the thumbnail that you'll see. And then I'm just going to go through. So I didn't print these. These were printed on hammer mill 32-pound paper with just a fine setting. I didn't go to the highest quality. Again, I'm going to be putting these in a journal, and they're going to be background, so I don't really need them to maybe necessarily be the highest quality because things are going to get covered up. But as you can see, they turned out really nice. So these were done just on the plain white paper, and for my actual journal that I'm doing, I did it on coffee stain and tea stain papers. So I'll show you kind of that difference. I wanted to go ahead and print them on bright white so that you can kind of see what the colors look like compared to with the tea stained. So this is one, and you can see I used actually a tea stained paper for the very background of my design, and then I actually used a book end papers for another layer on top. These are actually vintage handkerchiefs that I purchased at it's actually a coverlet for a bed that was made with all these vintage handkerchiefs, and I just loved all the different colors and designs. So I actually photographed all those and then used those and manipulated them in different ways to give them different texture and that sort of thing. And then I also used some of the vintage books that I have that are really old and have scanned some different images to use also in the collages. And then I've even learned how to create brushes, and so done some different, made some different brushes. There are a few of these patterns and things that are purchased, licensed purchases that you can make and then use in your artwork. From the Graphics Fairy, you'll see a few things, and then from Tom Chalky. So most of the items, I'm trying to do the bulk of things that I actually have purchased, scanned, or painted and created myself. That way you won't see them anywhere else really out there, because they're not things that someone else can purchase like through the Graphics Fairy. So this was the first one that I did. And then this again, this actually, this border I think was maybe from Tom Chalky, and the pattern behind is kind of a wallpapery pattern that, you create using digitally. And then this actual large piece that looks vintage here is an actual antique calling card that I had that I scanned and then, adjusted it and changed it. And then I thought, because I'm doing this kind of in homage to all the vintage books and things I've been collecting, I wanted to really make it kind of literary references and that sort of thing. So where I did in this one, I actually took a book plate. This was from a title page of a book. And then, there was a name in here, and I took that out just so that way for your journals, you can actually put in your own name, or if you're gifting it or whatever. But this is from an actual vintage book. So I wanted to kind of keep with that theme for this kit too. So I actually took a dedication also from a book and included that in there too. So this book was from 1863. So lots of, vintage little things in here. Again, the background of this one, if you can see, that was one of the backgrounds from my Fresco Finishes that I had painted on jelly plate. And then just some other little things from either things I scanned or images from Tom Chalky or the Graphics Fairy. And then I did actually make this stamp. They call them brushes. I made this brush from another text that I had scanned from another book. So just learning different skills and trying to use them in collage. This, again, table of contents in the background that was layered over top of one of my coffee stained papers. And then just some other elements. Again, another little hanky, a brush made from some music paper, and different things. So just, I did some that have lots of elements on them. This one again is the background. The very background of this one was done with one of my grunge papers from the Grunge background kit. One of my clock face brushes that I made a kit of clock face brushes from my own collection of vintage watch faces, pocket watches and things. So that's what those are from. This is actually from a vintage cigar box that I have that I scanned and took that. This was from the Graphics Fairy, and maybe that pattern too, I'm not sure. And then some music paper, some vintage music paper that I have also in the background. So, you know, just lots of different elements. Again, this background, the very background of this one is from my vintage wallpaper kit. And then a scan that I made, a brush that I made from some ephemera, I think from the Graphics Fairy. And then just a couple of other patterns. And then another one, a few other things. This one, I think the very background was another one of the Grunge papers. And then you can kind of see it's layered on top of what looks like the seam of a book. This is, it actually is end papers from a vintage train rule book that I have that I loved. It was just, I'm going to be putting together some more kits that will have like end papers and title pages and more book covers and things like I've done some in the past, but I want to do some more of that because they're great backgrounds to use in your layering, whether it's in the book like I'm going to show you, whether I've left them plain or just use them to layer in collage. And then this one, again, just this was a piece of ledger paper that I coffee stained to make it look old, and used part of that, another vintage hanky, some cigar labels that I used to create some more brushes and that sort of thing. This, again, was from a cigar box also. And then a couple of images from Tom Chalky. But otherwise, even that very background is end papers from one of my vintage books. And then this one, you can see it's that same end paper with a little floral design. And then I layered from a children's book on Shakespeare on top of that, and then just a little embellishment. And I wanted to keep some backgrounds really more plain and simple. You'll see how I've used them in the book to print double-sided, so you can print maybe something busier on one side and then something simpler on the back side, and then when you fold them in half, you have printed both sides for your folios. And then this one is, again, this is a vintage music book that I had, and then just some other elements layered on top. And you can see I've put the whole thing on top of one of my tea-stained papers, and then just some other pattern. And then again, this one was on one of my Fresco Finishes, and just kept it really simple and faded it back so that it could all just be written on like it is for journal pages. Without even too much embellishment. And again, the same thing with this one, another one of my Grunge papers, and then just another little simple text on that. And then again, another one of my Fresco Finish papers with some text brushes that I've created from old postcards. And then some of them you can get, like Tom Chalky has some also. But I had my own set of French postcards too. So I've used some of theirs and then some of my own on those. So just kind of a mix of collaged papers and then some more simple ones for the back side. So I've got that kit. There will be a link down below, like I said, so that if you wanted to purchase this, digital downloads. And then I wanted to share with you kind of as I was creating them, it kind of helped me to be creating more and to make sure I was getting a good variety of things. So when I started this, I decided to print them onto my tea-stained paper because I wanted them to be even more grungy and maybe have the feel of an old book. So some of the tea-stained and coffee-stained papers that I've made them on everything from thin, just regular, 28 pound or even less printer copy paper. And then on the 32 hammer mill paper, I really like the weight of that. That's probably what this is. And then also on some cardstock. So even within my journal, I'm using a variety of weights of paper. So for this one, I think this one was done on cardstock, it feels like, and not heavy like 110 pound, I think, white cardstock that has been coffee stained on both sides, or tea stained, and then printed one side with that first one that I showed, and then with the music one that I showed. Now you can see that they look a little more grungy than even my printed ones, because I've already gone and used my either vintage photo or ground espresso, the 2 oxides, and walnut stain also works. Anything that you have like that, just to age the edges. So I've gone ahead and done that just to kind of get them ready to go. So I ended up doing 3 folios with 3 signatures with 5 folios in each signature. So if you're brand new to all of this, when you're creating a book, each of the little sections where you have pieces put together, that's called a signature. So one piece of paper folded in half is called a folio, and then multiple folios together make a signature. So for this one, this was the second collage that I had done, and this one is printed on a little bit thinner paper. This one was cardstock. This one I think feels like a Hammermill 32 pound. And then I did, it was also done on, you know, coffee or tea stain. And then this is that one that I was mentioning at the end here. It was one of my layers I used in my collage. Not that one. In this one. So this had a layer of grunge paper, and then this paper on top of that, and then on top of that was this one, which this is, I believe, in the vintage book page kit. So you can see I scaled it up larger, just for different layers and textures. So I tried to use all of my kits that kind of fit with this theme I was going for in order to create this. So you end up with, you know, something busy, and then some writable space that can be decorated and added to. So that's my next one. And then this is from the vintage book page kit. Had this page, and you can see I've, you know, torn edges. This was the color that it was already, and then I just used my distress thing to kind of dirty it up even more. And then on the reverse of this one, I printed using one of my grunge papers. So that's why you get that kind of different mess and texture. But I really like that together. So again, it's writable, or I can decorate over it, same thing. And then this was another page from the vintage book collection. So I haven't done anything to it besides print it on some coffee stained paper and then just cut it down. And then another one of this was the table of contents sheet that I did. And then that one, you can see this one is done on much thinner paper. This was on just regular copy paper. Just for something, I just like my thicknesses of my paper to vary also. So it's just on thinner paper. And then again, that was one of the simpler ones I showed at the end with my grunge paper background. So that was my first signature. And then this will be the next one. And this one started out with that one collage. This is done on coffee stained or tea stained paper, printed on it with one side this collage, and the other side was that real simple one, which is, you know, it's tea stained paper on top of tea stained paper, because when I created this digital, it was created using coffee stained paper, but then I printed it also. So then you could print this same pattern on multiple different coffee stained papers, and they would all look a little bit different because you have your staining on your original, and then you're printing one on top of that. So I like that because you get a variety even with your own, with how you print it. And then this one again was one of my favorite. I just love her, I think, is it in this whole scene. So just again printed. This one's probably on the 32 pound Hammermill, and then again with the simpler on the inside. So I just kind of, and then again this This is just a page from the vintage book page kit. And then it was printed on coffee stained paper. And I had already printed all these out when I showed that kit. So I just grabbed that one and just started including those in. This way you can see this entire book that I'm creating was made using digital kits. I didn't actually even use any original vintage book pages, I don't think. In some of the other ones, I'm probably going to do that. I just wanted to kind of play with just using my digitals and see what I would come up with, because not everyone collects old books, wants to take them apart. I have sold vintage book sheet bundles in my Etsy shop. I think I'm sold out right now, but I from time to time will keep putting those in. So you might want to mix in actual vintage book pages in with these, just to kind of give it that real old book feel. So continuing on, another one. This one was done with my vintage wallpaper background with just a couple of elements and a brush. They call them brushes in Photoshop when you're using those. I think they should call them stamps, because they're more like a stamp if you were to use a stamp, but use it digitally. So they call them brushes though. And that one again was done just on tea stained paper. And then again, this was a sheet. Oh, that scared me. That was thunder. We're having a little thunder. This was also one of the vintage book page, in my vintage book page kit. So this was printed out digitally. I love this one because it's really, you can tell how old the book was just by how they had it bound. And then again, just printed on some tea stained paper. So that is my second signature. And my last signature here, again, I liked this one because it's just the end here, kind of. Again, done on some really grungy, heavier, this is probably the 32-pound paper from Hammermill. And again, it's one done with a coffee. This one might have even been done with some bubbles or lace in the background. And then this one is on thinner paper. This actually, it was a test print, but I ended up really liking it. So I have, when I was doing my rusted fabric collection, I would do test prints, and some of them I didn't really like the color. It looks better on my phone now, just looking at what you're seeing on camera is probably better than what I'm seeing in real life. So it was a reject. But I saved those because I can still print them. I might not want them in my digital kit, but I can still print them and use them in journals. And so I printed that, and then I ended up liking it. And there is more thunder. Hope we get some rain with it. That would be nice. And then this one I wanted to show too, you can print on other things. So this page, let's see if I can find it in here. This page looks like this on white paper, but you can print on a patterned paper. So I printed it on some green ledger paper. This is not old, this is just a new green ledger pad that I had coffee stained. So it makes it look old, and it makes the texture of it look old too. You can see where some of the staining is there. So that's kind of a fun thing to do, to print it out on, something with a pattern. Okay, there's more. It's getting scary. I hope there's not lightning because we're in the mountains where there are fires. Sorry. On graph paper would be good, lined paper, anything, just for that extra layer of background. And then another one, this was again from the vintage book pages with a little map on that. And then this is, again, one of the collages that I did, but from one of the book pages, and then just done on tea stained paper. So those are my 3 signatures that I've put together. And I'm going to end this video, I think, just so that it doesn't get too long. And then I'm going to be working on making the cover for, I've already started kind of pulling some things together. So I'm going to end this video and I will start the next one for the cover for this journal, and then we'll kind of continue on with that. So I hope you enjoyed this little kit, and if you do, you know, pop on over to my Etsy shop, and then you can even maybe get your signatures together and we can make this journal together. So have a great rest of your day. Now go make something. Bye.